So, long story short, to get to the answer, if you don't feel like sitting through the explanation, I do believe that marijuana should be legalized, and potentially other, drugs could be legalized as well. And I'm kind of the camp that the war on drugs does more harm than the actual drugs themselves. There are many people who agree with me, and there are a lot of people who think that's complete ludicrousy. And whether you agree with that or not, just learn the facts for yourself, do your own research, come to your own conclusions. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why I've come to this conclusion. And the main reasons for that is, well, first of all, I've never really gotten into the hard drugs. Because like me, I've never felt the need or the desire to alter my mental state, because my mental state is already so far from normal. I've had two therapists who have told me that I exhibit all the symptoms of schizophrenia, and they both recommended I get tested. Actually, one recommended I get tested, the other highly recommended I get tested. Anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. So me personally, I'm the kind of person that I can easily escape from reality with no problem. In fact, it was a bigger problem trying to stay in reality. That got me, got me in more trouble than anything else. Like, so many people have gotten pissed off at me because they're like, I would sit there staring at them for half an hour, when really, nope, I was just sitting there and I'm like, I'm bored, bye! And my body's just there, like this, and it just happens to be turned in the direction of someone who happens to just be right there in the field of view. But like, I have no idea you're even there. Anyways, so for me, I've never needed anything to like get me out of my state, because like I have a brain where it's hard for me to get they attached to reality. So like I have the exact opposite problem of people who drink too much. Okay, like I need to find a drug that can make me focus on the reality around me and not allow me to escape to my fantasy world. But whatever. So for me, the hardest drugs I've ever tried, like, of course, when you're in school growing up, you're hitting those teenagers, you've got friends who start drinking and smoking, you start like, I never went out of my way to drink, but like, you know how it is, you're hanging with people, you want to look cool, and so someone hands you a cigarette, you're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll take one. I'm good. And so that's basically my only experience. Cause like I tried a little bit of beer, smoked a few cigarettes, and I was like, this is not for me. And so that's pretty much, it was over and done with. By the time I started high school, my drug experimenting days were over, and I was good. And so I've never, like I said, never tried anything like really, really heavy. But personally, as far as marijuana is concerned, just go ahead and make that shit legal. I mean, it seems to be working up in Colorado. You see how well things are working out there, the taxes on that, and crime, I think, has gone down overall too. And I think just overall, it seems to be beneficial at first glance. And I feel like, let's go ahead and expand that to the entire U.S. I think I've never heard of marijuana actually hurting anybody. I've never known anybody to, I'm not saying that no one ever has, but I've never known anybody to die in a car crash because of marijuana, because most of the time when you're smoking marijuana, you're doing it at home, and you don't get, sometimes people will get up to go get the munchies, but even then their state's not so altered, they're not so altered that they can't control themselves. Like me personally, like at my last job that I had, I know so many people who would just come to work stoned as fuck, just high off their asses. And honestly, some of them actually performed their job task better high. I'm just saying. And then some of them I can't really compare because they were just high every day, and that's just how they normally were. But, it doesn't seem like it harms anybody. And it feels like, definitely for the medical benefits alone, it seems like it can help. And I just feel like in general, like I did a research paper once for prohibition, and when you have to write a 10-page paper on something, you pretty much have to learn a lot about it. And it seems like, banning alcohol was something that took hundreds and hundreds of years, and it took to put into effect, because there have been people fighting for prohibition, for as long as the colonies have existed, basically. And then, even they got it established throughout the entire U.S., and it took less than a decade to overturn, because people were just up in arms about it, and shit got real. And when the shit hit the fan, they were like, okay, my bad, y'all have your beer, you good? And, alcohol is definitely so much more harmful than marijuana ever was or could be. And so for me, like, we already know from past experience, we really can't ban alcohol. And so I feel like, marijuana, it's got more benefits than alcohol, and it's got a lot less harmful things about it. I've never known anyone to get angry smoking marijuana, so I've never known anyone who was high at the time and then got in a fight. So that's for me personally, that it just seems like a kind of a no-brainer, and even like harder drugs, like, it's kind of, I'm kind of the same camp with, like, a lot of drugs and prostitution, all of these things that are considered illegal. So many of them are considered illegal because, it has more to do with the, product of sin than the actual thing itself. A lot of people say, like, they don't want prostitution to be legal because it's disgusting, and pass all these diseases and stuff like that, blah blah blah. But if you are in a highly public and highly regulated industry, that alone will actually do away with the majority of those concerns that you are voicing. And a lot of people say, like, we don't want our kids doing this because then they'll get into this and stuff. Marijuana is a gateway, can be considered a gateway drug to harder stuff, only because it's put in the same category. Marijuana is treated as harshly as ecstasy. At least here in Texas, you get a pound of marijuana, you can get 3 years in jail. And not even a pound, like, hell, an ounce if you have a 1 ounce bag in your car, that can be a few years for you. And so, that would be the main reason why it's easy to go from this to this, because you put them in the same category, and so they feel like criminals when they're smoking it, and so you start experimenting with other things that are illegal as well. But that's my little opinion on it, though. And so yeah, I guess that's in a nutshell how I feel about it. I don't know if I expressed it eloquently enough for you to understand everything the opinion that I'm trying to voice. But yeah, long story short, legalize everything and just have very strict regulations, and it'll actually prevent most of the issues that we are currently having with the trying to get people to stop using it. Because, like, I'm kind of the opinion that people never grow up, and just people in general, especially teenagers, but just people in general, the more you tell them not to do something, the more they want to do.